It always comes to this. More nice shit. Well there guys, back again to do another, I guess it's another tattoo progress update today, and that's part of why I'm making this video. I went over in my last couple videos briefly kind of Rick being kind of indisposed or otherwise not available to tattoo me. He should be back in a few weeks. I'm not entirely sure. He actually broke his leg. He broke his shin bone very, very badly. And, like, he figured he'd be back by now because he can't really afford not to work. But I didn't think we'd see him again for a while. As of now, I've got him booked off the next 2 weeks and kind of just expecting to go longer. I think when you're getting on in years, and he's an old guy for his age. When you live hard, you age hard as well, and your body doesn't stay young and capable for as long as it would if you were, living a cozy lifestyle. Not to say you should be, sedentary or never moving around or doing anything, but when you're getting banged up all the time and you're drinking pretty heavy and you're, you've done all kinds of strange living, your body starts to break down a little quicker than typical. So I didn't expect a speedy recovery from Rick, and I didn't really know how to tell this because it could be as long as a month or two. It could be right away here, but I figured it was a good time to just talk a little bit about Rick, myself, and just kind of how people live sometimes, different lives, and what I've gotten into myself, and tell some of the backstory of how Rick and I met. I've told this story before, but for a lot of people new to the channel won't know this or won't be able to find the video buried in the hundreds of videos, but I first met Rick in 2005. I followed him over. My piercer that worked at a shop in town, and I was getting pierced at from the year 2000 to 2004. Went over to work at Rick's shop, and at the time Rick had the best known shop in the city, and they were doing a rate of work that was otherwise unavailable in the city at that time. And so naturally, I followed my piercer over to this shop. Shane was his name, and he did well over 50, 60 piercings on me. And the time that I knew him, I was very heavily pierced when I met Rick. He used to tell anyone when he met me, I jingled when I walked. That was his funny thing. Like, it was almost like a prideful story of like, I knew Remy a long time ago, right? And anyone who's seen my old pictures will know that I had way more piercings at one point than I do now. My first love was piercings, right? So, but having met Rick, it was kind of the only way to get tattooed by him was if you kind of already knew him. Back then, you didn't like email a shop or call a shop and make a consultation the same way. I mean, you theoretically could in some places, but for the most part, you would go in and you would meet the guy, but it had a vibe like you didn't want to go in unannounced. A lot of times, even when you showed up for your appointment, no one would greet you at the door. So it was one of those like you gotta know a guy type things, and so I had an easy in being that I was being pierced there. And so in around 2006, I had decided I was going to get tattooed. Actually, at one point I didn't think I was going to get tattooed, but I ended up getting my son's name tattooed to my arm in 2007, and that was my first tattoo. So I had it right here, and it's long gone. It was buried a long time ago. It was covered up before I was even done my first bodysuit. My first bodysuit had multiple reworks and cover-ups, and that was all before the blackout, right? So it wasn't like, oh, I don't like it. And in fact, it was done really, really well. And in some light, I can kind of still see the outline of it. It was that in there, and it was still super black when we covered it. Rick did it, of course. It was a custom script. He loves doing custom scripts, and I had drawn something up where the eye was a sword, and Rick cleaned the whole thing up, and he had a blast doing it. But then we did all these stars that was incorporated in that first tattoo kind of all over my body, and he was getting sick of doing those stars everywhere. So we ended up doing some swords on my neck, and we did a back piece, and we did my chest piece. We did all kinds of things over that first couple years. But around 2010, I kind of had enough dealing with Rick, because Rick can be a lot, and anyone who's watched this channel will know what I mean. But he's got a long process. Everything is layered in, and sometimes he's late. Sometimes he doesn't work that long. Sometimes he's, he doesn't do it so much anymore, but he used to no-show people. He was always a nice guy, but a little scary back in the day. He's not that way anymore. But, you get tired of that. And so he had agreed to do some small face tattoos on me, and it was already discussed that it wouldn't be a problem for me here in 2010 or 2011 when I got those done. He was going to do them, and we talked about it, and he was on board to do it. And then I show up for the appointment, and he forgot about it conveniently and said he doesn't tattoo faces, and told me it was a terrible idea. So that was kind of when I had enough. I didn't get tattooed by Rick for 7 years. I ended up getting those tattoos I wanted done by someone else, and that's a whole other story. I did a video on that as well, and that was a whole big fucking fuck around too, because anyone willing to tattoo a complete stranger's face back in those days, quite a while ago, isn't going to be the best tattooer. So, but that's why these things are 7 or 8 layers, and they're where I like them to be now. But it was a storied journey there. But yeah, as I said, I had to be talked into working with Rick again, and my old artist Lee kind of rehabilitated Rick when he brought him into this shop, and Rick's shop closed down because he was not a great business owner, as you can imagine, and a better artist than he had any right to be managing his business. Lee kind of gave him new purpose and a new lease on life, and he assured me that a lot of the stuff Rick used to do was not the way that it is anymore, and so I was safer to go to him at this point. And at that point I was pretty close to, I was done my original bodysuit for the most part, but I had some things I wanted to change around, as I do. We changed the frame of my face tattoo, and I had Rick cap off my skull with a cool vampire bat, and we got to do the Witch King on one of the last places on my body that was open, and we did a bunch of kind of tweaks and stuff. I was still working with Lee actively at this time, and so basically anything that Lee didn't feel comfortable doing or felt that Rick would be better suited to, I would see Rick for. And yeah, so I had this thing going where I was getting tattooed by Lee and Rick at that point. And when Lee left to open the new shop in Kelowna, Rocky Mountain Tattoo Kelowna, Rick kind of just took over as my main artist, and there was a few years there where he was my only artist. I'd swapped down to one a week for a while, and I had all kinds of other things I wanted to do, so naturally I started working with Terry as well. All of this is leading to the fact that Terry has kind of become more or less my main artist, even though spiritually or in some meaning, I still think of Rick as my main artist, and I still like to think of him this way. And I think it's because I like how much progress he's made on himself over the years, despite himself, and how much he was open to doing things that no one thought were possible. And I still, to this day, believe that none of what Terry and I are doing would be doable if not for the work that Rick and I did all throughout the years that I worked with him, and his general lack of fear in approaching new ideas. You ask Rick to do something that most people would tell you you're crazy for, like putting red over black, and he was just like, yeah, I got a highlighter red over there, I'd love to try. He was just open for the road. And so I've been seeing this for a while, where I believe, even though I still think that Rick is creatively better than Terry in some ways artistically, I start to get, it starts to become impossible not to see that Rick, whether he was at one point as technically capable as Terry or not, he isn't anymore. And Terry has got this ease of putting ink in to where it just kind of does whatever he wants. And he didn't have that when I first started working with him, but he's admitted to, in the time we've been working together, his color saturation has gotten better. And, it used to be more of a fight, and now it just goes in, and, it is what it is. It doesn't mean that I'm done with Rick because of that. I think some of that is age. I think some of that is like hard living and all kinds of things. I don't know that Rick is as good as he once was. I could be wrong though, right? Like, it could just be that what we're doing it shouldn't go as well as it does, and it should take as long as it takes, and Terry's just figured out some cheat for it. It could be all of those things, right? I would almost prefer that, because it's hard for me to look at, I wouldn't say Rick has been a hero to me, but in some ways he has been, right? Like, I admire the old school nature. I think some of that is good. I don't think all of it is good, and I think it's an acquired taste as well. I don't think that most people would get tattooed if it had to be that way with every artist. And I think that a lot of people have no idea what the industry was like. And part of why Rick and I get on is because I was getting pierced and tattooed in and around when this thing was still fairly underground. It was just starting to become not normal, but like surface. And most people don't remember these things. And so he and I have this kind of camaraderie around the idea of like how it was. And I remember seeing artists making their own needles and, that whole thing. So the whole thing has changed a lot. And I don't think that a lot of new artists or new clients will understand or appreciate Rick's way. With that said, it's like, it's probably some like effect of myself getting older. I'm getting older myself, and when I see Rick's, struggle where he's broken his leg here and he's unable to work and he has no savings, and it's sad, and I think it's also scary. I felt this way when a friend of mine took his own life a few years ago as well. He had lived a similar lifestyle, but obviously not with tattoos. It was cooking and traveling. But you can get to this point in any field of work, where he had nothing and no one and nothing put away, and when your ability to earn is hindered even for a moment, it's kind of the, what are you going to do? And I feel for guys like that. And, sometimes when I'm young-minded, there's even moments now where I envy that lifestyle. When I see people living recklessly, and my life is very, very, very tethered and disciplined and focused, and almost every moment is planned and budgeted for. There's moments where that freedom looks very appealing to me, and then when these things happen, it's like, yeah, that's why you don't do that. I think that's good when you're young, but it's as you get older, it starts to get more and more dangerous and risky to live that way, because humans aren't invincible, and when we start breaking down, if we've got nothing to fall back on, it's kind of it. So he may end up in here working, whether he likes it or not, in some form or fashion. And the difficulty is, in this industry now, there's so much competition, where it's like, if he can't perform up to the level that people are expecting him to, they don't care about what's wrong with him. Nobody gives a fuck about that. They're not going to care that his leg is broken. He can only put in 20 minutes. People are people's time and money is valuable, and they're not going to want to sit through that. And especially where the overall standard of artists in this industry has come up so much, you'll have people eyeing other artists to do the work. And so that's potential loss of clients as well. Now, there are people who they love them and they're going to stick with them no matter what, but for the most part, the general consumer does not give a fuck about, first off, anyone personally, or second off, the excuses that people make for, or reasons they give for why they can't do the job the way that a customer wants them to, right? It's that whole line of, I'm here for the sandwich, not your balance sheet or your budget sheet or whatever, right? We just want the product, and more it's becoming that way. So there will be less forgiveness as time goes on for him for his many drawbacks, and I feel for him. Like, this is no way me beating him to death. This is like me understanding, like, this could be any one of us if we don't think ahead, you know? And you're never going to be as good as you were yesterday, 20 years from now either, right? Plan on, you know, getting a little bit worse eventually. And that's coming from me, who I will always tell you that I think you can be getting better every day, right? I'm always working on things because I feel like I can make things better every day. But I do think that there's a point where age wins, you know, and we aren't immortal. We don't get to live forever. And as we get older, we get, you know, less swings at the bat, I feel like, to improve ourselves. So anyway, hopefully Rick is back here sooner than later. I'm happy that we got most of this sleeve done before this happened, to some degree. I mean, obviously there's a lot more I want to do with it, but it's in a place where it's more or less okay to leave it for a while. And it's not like this work is aging horribly, but there was still so much more I want to do with it. And it is a fact that if Rick couldn't do the work, or if I felt like he was incapable, that doesn't mean the sleeve stops. It just means that I'll go to one of the other artists at the shop and have them finish it. And I would have no problem telling Rick that, because I'm not going to live with an incomplete sleeve because of anything, right? It's just, it's not going to happen that way. And I mean, I think he would even understand himself, being who I am. But obviously, I'm hoping that's not going to be the case. But I don't know. You know, it is what it is. Anyway, I'll be talking to you guys here again soon. Have a great day.